ENCHANTED by Gail Carson Levine. Chapter 25. I gaped at the page, read it again, and gaped again. In my daze, I noticed that my sooty thumb had left marks on the letter. He loved me. He'd loved me as long as he'd known me. I hadn't loved him as long, perhaps, but now I loved him equally well, or better. I loved his laugh, his handwriting, his steady gaze, his honorableness, his freckles, his appreciation of my jokes, his hands, his determination that I should know the worst of him, and, most of all, shameful though it might be, I loved his love for me. Placing my candle carefully, I danced and whirled around my room. I could marry Char and live with my love. I could leave Mum Olga and her spawn. No one would give me orders. Well, this was an unexpected solution to my trouble. Lucinda would have hated for me to evade my obedience by rising above it. And even Mandy would be surprised by this method of ending the curse. I extracted paper from the hiding place at the bottom of my wardrobe. My love shouldn't have an extra moment of impatience. However, my stub of a candle flickered out as soon as I wrote, "Dearest Char, darling Char, beloved Char." I ordered my mind to wake me the instant there was light enough to write by. Then I fell asleep, composing my letter. In the middle of the night, I awoke, my happiness draining away. I wouldn't escape the curse by marrying Char. I would be more cursed than ever, and he would be cursed too. Suppose my obedience were discovered. My stepfamily knew, and would take advantage to improve their rank and fortune. But that would be the least of it. An enemy of Kyria could put the curse to more awful use. In unscrupulous hands, I would be a powerful tool. I could be made to reveal state secrets. I could even be forced to kill Char. And I had no doubt my secret would be discovered. In court, there would be eyes and ears that would be alive to such signs. I'd never manage to fool them all. What could I do? Mother had ordered me not to tell anyone about the curse, but Mandy could countermand that order so I'd be able to tell Char. Then he could take precautions. I'd tell him. I'd wake Mandy now. I sat up in bed, happy again, and sank back. What precautions could Char take? He could prevent anyone from speaking to me or writing to me. He could shut me away. That might do, but he would have to bring me my meals, the flax to spin my clothes, the wood for my fire. It would be a burden similar to one of Lucinda's wedding gifts. And what would Kyria think of a hermit queen? And how would I feel? Locked away like Rapunzel in her tower. Moreover, even the best precautions could fail. I could ask him to give up being crown prince in favor of his sister. If he were never to be king, he might not be a target. But how could I ask such a thing? How could he accept? And would the danger simply move to his sister? We could keep the marriage a secret. That was absurd. The secret would get out. I cast about for other ideas, but none came. Cursed, I couldn't marry him. But if I ever managed to break the curse, in a month or in 20 years, I would find him and win him over again if he was still free. No matter what I had to do, no matter how long it took. But now, my only choice was to convince him to give me up. When I finally thought of what to say and began to write, I ruined 3 sheets of paper by crying on them, and a 4th because I forgot to misspell words. My dear Prince Charmant, your latest correspondence with my stepsister
was received by my mother, Dame Olga, and myself. Ella and the cook, Mandy, were not here to accept it. Ella is absent because she has eloped, taking our cook with her. She left a note which I have enclosed for your perusal. You have been much deceived in her. It was her custom to read your letters aloud to us and crow over them, thinking it a feather in her cap to be writing to royalty, such as yourself. For a while she had ambitions to be queen, but she despaired of it and took another offer. She would go into one of her dreadful rages if she knew the contents of your letter. I do not think she liked living on our generosity and longed to be able to lord it over us with greater splendour than we could hope for, although we fancy that our style is very fine. Your letter arrived 4 days after her departure. I know, because Denby had a ball that night, and Ella was greatly missed. Her beaux turned to me for consolation, and I gave them the same advice I have for you. Think no more of the minx, for she has already forgotten you. I am sorry to dismay you, but I hope you will be consoled by the fond wishes of this admirer.
Your angel of comfort. Hattie. I tore a sheet of paper in half for the enclosure, written in my own hand. These are the first words I ever penned as a married lady. You know him, but I shall not write his name, only that he is very old and very rich and lives far from Frau. And he is fool enough to make me his bride. Some day, and that day may not be long in coming, I shall be sole mistress of a vast estate. I shall not write again, but look for me. When my husband dies, I shall visit Frau. Should you spy a carriage that surpasses all others, peer inside. You will find me within, smiling at my jewels and laughing at the world. Ella. Char's anger at his tutor would be nothing compared with this. He would hate me until the end of the world. In the morning, Mandy dispatched the correspondence, thinking it an ordinary letter. I didn't tell her about Char's proposal, for fear she would think I should accept him. Although I knew I was right, I doubted I could withstand any argument. As soon as she left to post the letter, I collapsed in front of the fireplace, sobbing. When she returned in half an hour, I was still in tears. She gathered me in her arms.
What's the trouble, sweet?
For a few minutes, I continued to cry too hard to speak. When I was able to control myself, I told her. Did I do right? I asked at the end.
Come with me, lady.
She grabbed my hand and half dragged me to her room, passing several servants in the hall. Once there, she closed the door and turned to me.
Lady, you did right. Now I'm going to do right. Something I should have done long ago. Get behind the curtains, love.
I hesitated, pushing back the urge to obey. Why?
I'm going to settle scores with Lucinda. I want you to see me do it, but I don't want her to see you.
I hid.
Lucinda, I need you.
The scent of lilacs filled the room. I stifled a gasp. I could see Lucinda's outline through the rough weave of the draperies.
I never thought the day would come when the kitchen fairy would call me. I'm delighted. How can I help you, dear?
Don't dear me.
Mandy sighed.
But you're right. I need your help.
And I love to help.
Safely hidden, I grimaced at her.
I've been gathering my courage to ask you ever since the fairy ball.
One has only to ask.
Mandy sounded regretful.
I got into an argument with Kirby.
You shouldn't have. I never argue.
But I do. It was about you. Kirby said we should suggest you try being a squirrel and try being obedient. If you gave it a fair trial, 3 months as a squirrel, 3 months as an obedient human, you'd find out that your gifts aren't so wondrous after all.
I don't have to try out my gifts to know they're magnificent.
That's what I said you'd say. There, I can tell Kirby I won the argument. I said you'd be too afraid you were wrong to put it to the test.
Lucinda vanished. She must have been too angry at Mandy to continue the discussion. But then Mandy laughed.
Don't forget to be obedient, little one. Here's a nice walnut. I'm sending you to a comfortable park.
She paused.
You can come out, lady.
Did she really turn herself into a squirrel? I emerged cautiously.
She did.
Mandy was still laughing. Do you think she'll learn?
If she doesn't, she's even more of a blockhead than I think.
What if an animal eats her?
If that happened, I'd fear for the animal.
She chuckled.
What a stomachache it would have.
If she learns her lesson, will she undo all her gifts?
I don't know. I just had to stop her mischief. You may yet break the curse yourself.
But if she discovers how wrong she was, she'll want to lift the spell.
Maybe. But it would be more big magic.
Mandy drew me into a hug.
Oh, love. I know what that spell does to you.
I pushed out of her arms. You don't know. And how can you warn against big magic when you just summoned Lucinda?
Nothing one fairy does to another is big magic, lady.
Stop calling me lady. You used to call Mother that.
Now you're a lady too. If you'd put yourself first and married the prince, someone would have come along to harm him and Kyria. Sure as cabbages. You're a heroine, sweet.
I'd rather be his wife. The tears welled up again, and I threw myself across Mandy's bed. She sat next to me, stroking my back and murmuring,
Oh, sweet, my lady, perhaps it will come right.
She shifted her weight. Something crackled, and she exclaimed,
What's this? Oh, I forgot. When I posted your letter, there was one for you.
She pulled a letter out of her apron pocket. I flew up.
It's not in the prince's hand, love.
It was from Father, saying he wouldn't come home. My servitude pained him, but not enough to return him to the arms of his odious, though beloved, wife. He wrote,
When I find a husband for you who is rich enough to satisfy me, you will be released from my Olga. Until then, I urge you to be, as always, my stalwart daughter.
I fell back on the bed, laughing wildly. Father would make my letter to Char come true. He would marry me off to an ancient man who would soon die and leave me enormously wealthy. The irony. I couldn't catch my breath. Tears ran down my face, and I didn't know whether I was laughing or crying. Mandy held me until I quieted. While she rocked me, I thought that Lucinda still might save me. Mandy might be wrong. Once Lucinda knew how it was to be obedient, she wouldn't be able to leave me cursed. She'd have to help me.